Alright then, so everything's working so far. We can click on play to start a new game, wait a few seconds, the green block appears, it starts a timer, we click on the green block and then it stops the timer, and then we get our reaction time right here. But we want to do something with that reaction time. Ultimately, we want to show it to the user, and we're going to do that around about here, and it will be shown to the user eventually inside this results components. Now, that results component is going to be nested inside app.view, the root component below the block. Now, if we're going to show the results in the results component, then we need that data, the reaction time, that's stored inside the block component. So how do we get it from the block component back up into app.view in order to pass it down into the results component? Well, we can do this by emitting a custom event from the block component. Remember, we've seen this in the past. We emit a custom event from a component by using the emit keyword. And we're going to do exactly the same thing here. So right when we stop the timer, this is after we've clicked the block. That's the moment I want to emit a custom event to this thing right here, so we can react to it inside the app.view. And when we send a custom event or emit a custom event, we can send along with it some extra data. So I could send along with it the reaction time, and then we could access that from app.view. And that's what we're going to do. So let's do it right here when we stop the timer. That's when we want to emit the event. So we'll say this dot $emit. We've seen this before. We give the event a name. I'm going to call it end because it's the end of the game once they've clicked on it. And you can call it what you want, by the way. That's not important. But the second argument is going to be any data we want to send along with this event. And that data is going to be this dot reaction time. So their score that we have right here, the 380 milliseconds in my case. So let's now save that. And remember, we can react to this event being emitted inside the parent component on that component right here. And we do that by saying at and then the event name, which is end in our case, and setting it equal to some kind of function we want to run when this event occurs. So I'm going to call this function end game because that's what's happening, right? And we need to create this function now down here inside the methods. So end game like so. Now remember, we passed along this second argument, this data, and when we do that, we automatically get access to it as a parameter inside the function that we use to handle that event. So let's do that. I'm going to call this reaction time, but you can call it what you want. It doesn't have to be the same as this. We're just passing a value here, and it can be called whatever you want inside this function. So we have that inside this function, and what I want to do now is store that time or that score inside this component in a variable or in a property. So let's create one called score and set that as null to begin with, and then we'll update this right here. So we'll say this dot score is equal to the reaction time. Okay, so that's all I want to do for now. In fact, I also want to say we're no longer playing the game. So I want to turn that back from true to false again because we've ended the game, and then that way they can start a new game if they wish. So let's say this dot is playing is back to false. Okay, so now we have that and we have the score stored right here. We could therefore output the score over here. So let's do that. We'll do a p tag for now. Eventually, we are going to show them inside the results component, which will be nested here. But before we do that, let's just output them in this component. So paragraph tag, and we'll say reaction time, and that's going to be the score because we store it here, right here. Okay, so let's add milliseconds after that. So we use a nose and save it. I'm going to come over here, and we can see at the minute there's no number there, but when we play, once we click on the green blob, when it appears, we can see now reaction time is 520 milliseconds. So we're taking that data from the block component, we're passing it up inside this custom event, and then we listen to that event right here. We call this function, which automatically takes that argument, and we're updating the score, which is equal to that time, and then we output the score over here. Now, when we first load the game like this, I don't want to show it. I only want to show it based on a certain condition. So let's now go over here and say we'll have another data property called show results. And there's more than one way of doing this. I just want to make it explicit. And I'm going to set that to be false. And then I'm going to say up here, viv, and set that equal to show results like so. So now only if this is true will this show. Now how do we set this to true when we want to show it? Well, we can do that at the end of a game. So I can say this.show results is now equal to true. So save that and then come over here and refresh. And now it doesn't show to begin with, but it should show at the end once we've clicked on this green square right here. The only thing is, if we start a new game now, then it still shows. And I want to hide it when we start a new game. So we'll say over here, this.show results is then equal to false again. Save it and let's come over here, play the game, wait a second or two, click on that, we see the results. As soon as we start to play again, we don't see that time until we click on the green square again, and then we see it. So that is much better. Okay, so that's how we use custom events to send up data as an argument, which we can then receive in any kind of callback function we use.